Hello, this is Hunter McDermott with AnyoneCanPlayGuitar.org. Thought I'd do a quick video to help you understand how to change the strings on your guitar. It's sort of a mysterious process for a lot of people, especially newcomers, so I thought I'd show you how I do it. Everybody's got a different method, and I'm sure you'll find fault with mine, but it's always worked for me. So, here we go. I'm going to start with acoustic. I'll do another video for an electric. Although it's not very different. So the first thing, we need to gather some supplies. We don't need very much, and most of the ones that I use are optional. Obviously we need our guitar, and we also need strings, of course. Any type of string will do. I like to use these Martin Silk and Steel strings. They think they sound pretty good. I would recommend, if you're not sure what kind of string you need, to get any acoustic string set that is a light gauge. That's usually a pretty safe way to go. Phosphor bronze is pretty common. I think D'Addario makes a good set. You'll need some simple wire cutters used to cut the strings. This really is optional. Some people prefer to coil the string around and keep it uncut at the end. I don't like to do this because I think it kind of creates buzzing, but yeah, there you go. I've got a string winder. This is definitely optional, but it speeds up the process. You put this on the tuner, and then it helps you tune and untune the string pretty quickly. I like to take the opportunity while the strings are off of my guitar to polish it up and just clean it up, especially beneath the strings near the sound hole where it gets kind of dusty. And of course, when you're polishing, you'll also want some kind of cloth. Okay, so when you got all your supplies ready, it's time to take the strings off. I like to use my string winder here, and I'm just going to put it right on the string, the tuner itself, and then I like to just go ahead and hit the string once and then start turning just in case I get it the wrong direction. I want to make sure that we're loosening the string and not tightening it. So I'm just going to go, and this obviously makes it very quick, several times around till it looks like it's starting to come off, till it's nice and loose, and then I can just pull it right off. That's all there is for that end. Now the other end, this is where these wire cutters come in handy. A lot of string winders, and this one has, let's see if I can show you, has a little groove on it right at the top there, and what that groove is designed to do is to help you pull the pin out when you down here at the base of the bridge. I find that when you use that, it tends to dig into the wood of the bridge and kind of scar it up, which you don't really want to do. So I would recommend not using that if you happen to get one of these string winders. It's just more trouble than it's worth. Nice idea, but I don't think it works all that well. So I would use my wire cutters. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to open them up just a little bit and grab that tuning pin, that tuning peg there. So see if I can show you here. All I'm going to do is I'm going to use these string cutters. I'm going to go right underneath just the sort of collar of that pin, and I'm just going to squeeze them ever so slightly just so I've got a little bit of a grip on it. And then this one actually came out pretty easy, but if it's kind of stubborn, you can sort of lightly wiggle back and forth and pull that pin out as you go. Of course, repeat with your next string. I just hit the string once just to make sure that when I'm turning and loosening the string that I actually am loosening it and not tightening it. Because the strings are not elastic, it's unlikely that should you over tighten a string that it will pop off and hit you in the face. I'm not going to say it'll never happen, but it's unlikely. So even though it's scary when a string pops, it's not going to hurt you most of the time. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take off the rest of these. Okay, so I've got all my strings off. Some people say that you don't want to take all the strings off at one time because it affects the pressure put on the neck. I've never encountered a problem with that, so I just take them all off, like I said, because it gives me a chance to clean pretty thoroughly without having to worry about hitting the strings. So again, I'm just using this Jen Dunlop guitar polish stuff, and I just spray a few times. Get the neck too, especially, it's a good spot. And of course, just want to polish it up. Go over it one time with the dry side of the towel. And you flip it over, and you can sort of buff out any smeared areas. I don't have a shiny guitar finish on mine, so I don't have to worry about that, but you know, just do a good enough job to where it doesn't have fingerprints and junk all over it. Okay, so when we've got all our strings off, we're all polished up and ready to put the new strings on. I would recommend before you handle the new set of strings that you wash your hands, because sometimes oils in your hands can contribute to rusting strings, and you don't want to start off on a bad note. So okay, so I go ahead and lay out my strings so I'm all ready to go when the time comes. I'm going to start with my first string, just cause, doesn't really matter which one you start with. These Martin strings I use come in packs with 2 strings packed into one, so I'm going to do the first string and then I'm going to do the 4th string because that's how they pack them. Doesn't matter though. So I'm going to grab my pin here. Any pin will do, it doesn't really matter which pin goes in which hole because they're all the same. Now it should take a note that if you can see it, it's probably going to be a little blurry, but well, you'll see on your own pin that, there you go, you can sort of see that this pin has a little groove on one side. Now we want to make sure that when we put our string in down here at the bridge, that groove is facing toward the headstock of the guitar, facing toward the sound hole and the neck and all that stuff, because that's where that string is going to go in that groove. So take the ball end of your string, I know it's hard to see, I'm sorry, take that ball end of that string and stick it in the hole there just a little bit. And then what I like to do is take that pin with the groove facing that way and sort of use it to push the string in. Now, as I'm pushing the pin in, I'm just sort of lightly tugging on the string with my other hand just to keep it from going too far in. And then I just push down hard, make sure you can feel it kind of wedge down in there while I'm sort of just gently tugging up on the string. What happens on the inside of the guitar is as that ball end goes in, then this pin comes in, the pin's gonna wedge itself, or it's gonna wedge the ball end between the pin and the side of the guitar there, so on the inside, so you're gonna have this sort of wedge happen. And if that string's pushed in really far and then you push the pin in, when you start to tighten up the string, eventually it's gonna lose its grip and tug forward. You know, it's not the worst thing in the world. All it means is that you just have to tighten your string up again, but it can kind of pop and, you know, be sort of scary sounding, and if you do this, it takes care of that problem right from the get-go. So that's how I like to do it. Alright, so that takes care of that end. That's pretty simple. Now, the other end. So what we're going to do is we're going to line up our hole here on the very first tuner. Now you want to make sure that you put these strings in the right tuners. You know, depending on how long you've been playing, it might not be so obvious, but we have 1, 2, 3, and then it goes around the top, 4, 5, 6. So make sure you're going in the right hole. Alright, so I'm going to stick the string through the hole, and I'm going to go ahead and pull it all the way through and tight. Another thing I'm making sure to do is make sure that that string goes in the groove on the nut there, that white piece there on my guitar. Make sure that sits in its proper groove. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling it tight here, and I'm going to measure out with my left hand, my index and thumb there, I'm going to measure out to about the next post. And I'm going to mark that spot there just by keeping my index and thumb there. Then I'm going to, with my other hand, pull that string back that far so that my finger and thumb bump into the post that I'm going through, and that just gives me a little bit of slack on this string so that when I tighten I'll have a little bit of excess string wound around the post, which is what we want. Alright, then I can grip the string underneath using these fingers here. So I'm wrapping my fingers underneath the string and using my index finger to push down just kind of keep that string in place. That way I can take my other hand off, and I know that I've got that string still measured out in the proper way. Alright, now for this first string, because it's on the far side, I have to switch my hands, so I'm just going to keep that spot that I had with my other finger, and now I've got on the other side. So now I can use my right hand and reach over and tighten this thing. Again, I'm using this string winder, and we want to make sure that the string always winds outward toward the outside of the guitar, so don't wind it toward the other tuners. You want to make sure all strings are wound out on their respective sides.